Welcome to Huntersville's Council meeting number 4493. We'll start the meeting today with an acknowledgement to country. I would like to show my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, of the elders past, present and emerging on which this meeting takes place.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us to the common good and as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Okay, that brings us to attendance and apologies. We have all councillors present. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Miles.
Mr. Mayor, I am going to declare interest in item 4.10, draft plan of management, given that I reside next to a reserve that's referred to, but given it's non-significant, non-pecuniary, I'll remain and vote on that. And equally, item 4.14, one of those applicants is known to me, but again, that's non-significant and non-pecuniary, so I'll be staying to vote for that.
Councillor McLaughlin.
I'm going to declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in items 4.13 and 4.14, as some of those applicants are known to me.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Collins.
Similarly for 4.14, some of those, one of those applicants is known to me, but it's non-significant.
Are there any other declarations of interest? No. So that brings us now to confirmation of the minutes. Yes, Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move them, but there are a couple of corrections that need to be made before they would.
Would you like to stand, please? Thank you. I think the General Manager will clarify those minutes for you. So would you like to clarify?
Yes.
And if it's not covered by that, then yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been brought to my attention, councillors, that on page 10, in relation to item 4.5, which was the traffic committee item relating to Mary Street, that Councillor Sanderson voted for the item, not against. So we need to make a correction to the minutes there. And there are a couple of formatting issues within the minutes which we'll tidy up in terms of numbering.
Does that cover your
Well, I
issue?
presume that's a renumbering of resolution 266/21.
That's correct, yes.
And the other one that is there, the resolution, I'm sorry to get used to Zoom meetings, but the resolution at 268/21, it isn't what was actually said at the meeting, it's basically the same, but I just asked the English be corrected and the word be inserted before the word provided.
Did you say 268/21?
That's right.
We're just, oh, okay, right. Did you just show that thing, Chris? Yeah, okay. And clearly, deletion of motion carried. Oh, the motion was carried with the mayor's casting vote. I don't think that's necessary.
There's nothing to reply.
Yep. Okay. Any further debate in relation to the? Is there a seconder to the minutes? Yeah, Councillor Miles. I just need during this meeting to make it clear who's moving and seconding, and also get clarity around the resolutions, because we have a person here now taking our minutes, which will not be familiar with the people involved. Okay, so I just need to make sure that we get it clear who's doing what. Okay, so if there's no further debate about the minutes, I'll put the minutes. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. That now takes us to the first item on our agenda, which is item 3.1, notice of motion from Councillor Sanderson, sustainability. Councillor Sanderson.
Move the motion.
seconded Councillor Crassoy. So Councillor Sanderson has moved the motion and Councillor Crassoy has seconded. You wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Sanderson?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I
We
would.
have a speaker.
Mr Mayor.
Oh, we do. Sorry. Okay. Who's this? Yes, please allow the person to act. Yes, 3 minutes. Good evening. It's I can't see. Oh, it's Heather Armstrong. Good evening, Heather.
Good evening,
Um,
everyone.
please speak to the issue. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Oh, right, straight in. Okay. Well, I'm supporting the move.
Could you
from-
just wait 1 moment because the volume is not quite right. We're just trying a new system here, so just please hold.
Okay.
Keep going. Could you test
Hello?
1, 2?
Can you hear me?
It's been run through the-
Can you hear me?
Can you hear? Yes. Okay, that's adequate. So thank you.
Good.
Please proceed.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am supporting the creation of a permanent sustainability committee. I obviously consider this to be a very important committee because it's an overriding consideration of the various issues facing council. Sustainability is a concept which must be embedded in every single aspect of council's policies. It's not something that you can just push off to one side and forget about. Somebody has to be there raising the issues on a constant basis, evaluating, correcting, suggesting amendments and changes or new policies. There needs to be a constant focus on this, and the way to do that is to have an ongoing committee rather than something that just occasionally turns up and says something. This must be embedded in council procedure because it's such an important aspect of how we can progress our economy and our society in a way that's going to save the planet, basically. There's no easy way out of it. We need to address every single aspect of what we do as business people and as citizens and as councillors, etc. Government, all aspects of our society need to be considering ways in which we can change policies and practices to embed sustainability. So I strongly support this committee. I have seen the proposed composition of the committee and I'm very impressed by the people you have on it. You've got some pretty heavy hitters on that committee, including Lisa McLean, who is the CEO of Circular New South Wales. You've got Joanne Taranto, who's a postgrad in health science and has environmental qualifications. Helen Whitcomb works in plastic recycling. You've really got a lot of expertise there. So on a communal basis within that committee, you've got excellent expertise. It'd be a great shame to lose that expertise and lose that input from those qualified and skilled people. So I strongly support this committee and hope that it can become a permanent fixture of council's infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Are there any questions of the speaker? No? Thank you very much for your presentation this evening. We'll now consider the matter after a further presentation.
You're welcome. I'll leave the meeting now, okay?
No, yes, thank you. Okay.
Right, okay, thank you.
We also have, oh no, that's for the next item. So Jim, Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm absolutely delighted to move this motion tonight. It's been a cooperative effort. I think Councillor Crassoy, who I intend to have as a co-reporting officer on this, for the advice that she's provided, and also the support of Councillor McLaughlin and the Mayor. This is something that, I guess if I go back as a kid, I was initially told, I mean, I'm 68, so it's going back a while, but I was told that the sky was big enough and the oceans were big enough to absorb pollution. That is absolutely not the case. We've learned a lot since then. The foresight of Royal Harlem Brundtland in 1987, the former Prime Minister of Norway, brought a concept to UNESCO, and I've embedded that in the terms of reference for this motion. That concept was that that we must meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. I think intergenerational equity is at the core of all our sustainability efforts. And we've learned a lot since that time. But at the same time, we need to speed up the efforts given the emergency that we rightly recognised about 12 months ago, thanks to the motion of Councillors McLaughlin and Crassley. We've also managed to put together an incredibly capable committee, as our speaker has just acknowledged, and I agree that it would be a tragedy to let that committee dissipate. It's also important that we form this committee so that in the next term of government or next term of this council, it will be ongoing. We'll get up and going quickly. Yes, we'll have to confirm appointments or get new appointments to it, but it will continue its operation. The terms of reference that are included in my report, they expand on the terms of reference of the former working party, and that's important because when this committee convenes as a committee rather than as a working party, it will be able to get on with the bigger job. We cannot afford to waste any time on this issue. Political cycles have caused it to be delayed too many times. We can't allow even a delay of a few months. It's important that this incredibly talented committee just gets on with the job. And I hope I will get the support of all councillors tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any speakers further? Yes, Councillor.
I just want to speak briefly on it. First of all, I agree with the forming the sustainability committee as a standing committee of council, and absolutely agree with everything that's been said. It's just a process issue. The appointment of in the terms of reference, as with all committees, the public nomination should follow the policy guideline 3 of council, which you referred to. We can't actually form according to our policy, form a committee if we haven't actually put out expression of interest. That's a transparent way. It's the proper process to do it. Now, I understand that that would take too much time. So what I would suggest is that we put the sustainability committee on the permanent list of committees, and we continue until the end of term as a working party, just to comply with our policies and ensure transparency. I agree that the people that are on the committee at the moment are probably best suited to continue this work, and it's probably not of much value to go out and try and reinvent the wheel with only getting 2 or 3 meetings in place. So the flexibility of a working party would allow us to continue another few meetings and keep going with it. But tonight we can actually put on the policy register the sustainability committee as an ongoing, so then the first term of council, when it renews, then we can do it the proper way. As much as I think that the current working party have done a terrific job, we cannot just unilaterally decide that we are going to co-opt them into a committee, because that's not the proper process to do it. So agree with the sentiment. I think it's an excellent idea. We should just do it the right way. So I'm going to propose an amendment, or if Councillor Sanderson might be willing to incorporate it, just in light of the fact that we cannot.
No, could you say what the amendment is, please?
Well, look, there is a lot of. So basically, the council. Okay, at number 1, council endorsed the formation of a. And right at the end of that, to commence. Sorry, after initiative, to commence with the next term of council. If I can insert between 1 and 2 that that council continue the work of the working party, until the end of the term, and then basically change wherever it refers to the committee to the working party. That'll mean that we're complying with our policies and we still get the same outcome. So,
Is there a seconder to Councillor Collins? Councillor Miles has seconded. Do you wish to speak to the amendment?
only to say that it is an excellent idea, and I think we absolutely should do it. But we have to actually follow our own policies, and so this allows us to get the same result. We still form the committee. It just happens to start at the next term, and the current committee can continue their excellent work for the next few months until we enter caretaker mode. That's all I'm really saying.
Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor
Clarification,
Miles, yes.
just off that process, I guess, through you to the general manager, we would have to comply with the policy, we'd have to express interest out if we were forming a committee, wouldn't we?
So through you,
Madam General Manager.
through you, Mr. Mayor, under the council's committees policy, there's a clause within it that states under 3.4, it is good administrative practice to place advertisements in local newspapers seeking committee members for committees, including the requirement that nominations must be made in writing. So it doesn't say thou shalt, it just refers to it as good administrative practice.
Just another, if I may.
Yes.
Is if and I do note in 3.2, the recommendation is that the working party members that wish to stay on for the following 2 meetings as we move into implementation. Will we have many more than 2 meetings before we're caretaker?
Madam General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would be a matter for the working party, but I think it was envisaged that there would be 2, given that council moves into caretaking mode in July, 1 month out from the election, so the end of July, early August.
Yes, question, and then Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Collins, you have a question.
Just if I can, through you, Mr. Mayor, the General Manager. 3.1 of the policy says nominations for community representative membership of committees must be made in writing. Members of the committee who are seeking membership of the committee must complete and submit a nomination form. So would that indicate that if we don't have nominations from them in writing, then we can't actually even consider that?
Madam General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's what it says in the policy. I would say that the working group, when the current working group was formed, requests for an expression of interest went out and people were asked to nominate in writing.
But for a working party, not a committee.
Through Mr. Mayor, the nominations to the working party were made in writing. And as 3.4 says, it's good administrative practice, but it doesn't say that shall.
Right.
Can I just clarify just one question? If we've got, how could they have nominated for a committee that didn't exist at the time? So they haven't actually, yeah, just, I think it's quite prescriptive, that's all.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager. Can't we just put out expressions of interest after we resolve to form this committee tonight? We can put out expressions of interest immediately.
Yes, we could do it next. And
that's right.
Madam General Manager.
And that would include, I'm assuming, some of the members who have been on the working party. So we could easily have this committee up and running for the next 2 meetings that we envisage it setting it up for. That process of expressions of interest doesn't have to be a very long process.
Yes, I think we could do that. Madam General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the practice has been that we advertise expressions of interest. Those expressions of interest come back to the council and then the council endorse the membership. So if that's the way that council resolves tonight, we could certainly go out later this week, seek expressions of interest and bring back a report to the April meeting.
Thank you. Is there any further debate with the amendment that Councillor Collins and Councillor Miles have moved? Are there any speakers against? No? Yes, councillor Miles.
Just very briefly, I kind of think that, although I agree with councillor McLaughlin that we could do that, we should probably just continue on with the current members, because they obviously have a lot of buy-in to the report that I'm hoping we'll adopt. But it seems, for the sake of 2 meetings and then into caretaker with an in-principle view, I think that is amongst all councillors that we're probably going to continue this committee in next term. It might not be worth our while changing up the committee, changing to a committee and going out for expressions of interest if we are only going to do what it says we're going to do in item 3.2, which is hold another 2 meetings of that working group before the next election. So I agree with councillor Collins. We have to adhere to council's policies. I think that it's important that, you know, when we set these rules, that we live by them. And I think that it might just be worth, for consistency's sake, to keep the working party for those 2 meetings, and then as the now motion reads, or the amendment to the motion, I should say, agree to form a working party, and then that will roll over into the term starting 9th of September 2021. 9th of September.
Thank you. My interpretation and understanding what the general manager has said is that council does have the opportunity to do this if it wishes to. It's not
In
against
contravention of our policy.
No, it's not in contravention of the policy. Madam General Manager.
Just to, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to clarify, if the council wishes to support the notice of motion this evening and go out and advertise for expressions of interest, as councillor McLaughlin has flagged, we bring back a report to the April council meeting. Council would then endorse the members that had submitted.
Yes, so it's not against council policy.
And could I
Councillor
also, I'll just raise one other point, and that is that I think some of the members of the working party have flagged they actually want to stand down. So I think we will have gaps in that working party anyway. So I don't see.
Then it probably is.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, we've had speakers for and against the amendment. Councillor Collins, do you wish to speak in reply?
Look, I'm quite happy to sort of work with everyone on this. If councillors are in mind to put it out to expression of interest, the only reason I thought that might not be ideal is because we lose another month, so couldn't actually start anything until that next meeting. And I think there's just more flexibility with the working party up until the end of term. But I certainly have no issue with with putting it out to expressions of interest. So not sure how to proceed here, because
Well, no, you're speaking in
Yeah.
right of reply, and once you finish that, we'll vote on the matter,
vote on the matter. Okay.
on the
Alright.
amendment.
All
So
right.
you finished?
Yeah.
Could we just have the amendment read again, please? So that we're clear. Just take a moment. It's on the screen, so you should be able to read it there. So that's what we're voting on as an amendment.
Yeah. So the only 2 things that change is
No, but is that as you said? Yes.
well, can you I read it all and compare it? Because the only thing that changed was that's okay, and then continue to work until the end of the term. Yeah, okay, that's
Okay, so we've now got clarification of the amendment. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare it lost. So councillor Collins and councillor Miles were in favour and the rest were against. Yes, councillor Collins.
Well, I haven't finished speaking to the original, so I'd like to propose another amendment.
Yes, you can
Which is
propose
to-
another amendment.
Is to put the is basically just to put it to expression of interest, which would be basically getting rid of number 4. So the council appoint the 3 councillor representatives and 8 community representatives through an expression of interest process. In accordance with the policy or whatever. And I don't mind if you want to name the councillors now or when it comes up. I don't mind.
Okay, so is there a seconder to the amendment? Councillor Miles has seconded Councillor Collins's amendment. You wish to speak further to your amendment, Councillor?
No, except I think it's just briefly that I think, as I said, it's a great idea, and this is, whilst probably the working party might give a bit of flexibility, there's absolutely no reason why we can't form this committee now and have 2 meetings. I would encourage the people that have already been working on the working party to apply if they have the time, but also open it up to other members of the community that probably may not have been aware of the great work council has been doing. I think this is a great opportunity for members of the community to get involved in this, and I would encourage everybody to apply if it's something of interest. So yeah.
Are there any speakers against the amendment? Councillor McLaughlin?
I'm not speaking against it. I'm just wondering if we might just want to add to it. The wording that I had said was that council call for expressions of interest for 8 community representatives and invite members of the current working party who may wish to do so to reapply.
Good idea.
To the
Well, we have an amendment on the table.
We're happy to
No,
accept that.
I'll incorporate. Yeah.
just so that we get letters out to.
Oh, we can't have 2 amendments on the table at once.
We've
No,
agreed
we
to amend
incorporate.
the amendments
Yes.
to what Councillor McLaughlin has just suggested.
Okay, have we got that down? No. So could you please restate that?
The council call for expressions of interest for 8. I guess you need to put in the 3 councillor representatives, which are already covered, and call for expressions of interest for 8 community representatives, and also invite current members of the working party who wish to do so to apply or reapply. I think it's probably more appropriate.
So that is agreeable.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea.
So that becomes the amendment. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the amendment?
I just have a quick question.
Yes, Councillor Russell.
I know that I read it and I'm pretty sure it's in the terms of reference, but when we formed the working party, it was that the call for applicants was people with relevant expertise.
I think in the terms of reference.
No, look, we've got a rules of debate. So,
What I'm asking the question is,
the question is,
if we amend it to just say that we put it out to 8 people who want to be on the party, will that be covered off? Is it in the terms of reference that the people on the working party have relevant expertise and work experience to offer to the committee? So it's not just like kind of, oh, that looks like a good committee to be on. I'd like to be on it, which is helpful. But the terms of reference for the working party, all the submissions sought for applicants to the working party had those parameters around it, so that people applying to be on it.
That's in the
no,
policy.
Councillor Collins. So that's a question.
I'm asking the question.
Yeah, okay.
If we do that.
Madam General Manager, can you assist, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in the terms of reference that Councillor Sanderson has drafted, it does make reference to 8 community representatives, 5 of whom should have relevant qualifications and or experience. So I think we could manage through the OI process to draw that out.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there any further debate on the amendment? Yes, councillor Sanderson, do you wish to speak against or for?
I wish to raise a point, and that is whether the motion as it stands now would appoint the current members of that committee as ongoing members of the committee. I don't believe it's been
If
covered.
they wish to do so.
I think that's just a
They're
word.
invited to under this.
The understanding is no. Invited to.
Oh, okay. No further debate, right of reply?
I don't think
No,
necessary.
okay, I'll put the motion, the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. We now move back to the original motion. Councillor Miles, you wish to speak for or against?
Just a question through you, I guess, to councillor Sanderson or Crassel. When the point 6, the council invites all of our high schools to send a youth representative. That's not obviously not included in the committee members. It's just so that they can turn up and contribute. Or what's the intent there? What's that structure?
Councillor Crassel.
Thanks, councillor. Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, the idea of that is that they not be appointed as committee members because that could affect the quorum, and so that they would always be invited to attend and contribute and take away what they will from it. And by inviting them to attend, there's no obligation to them. So that's why we kept it as a separate.
Okay, any further debate on the motion? Yes, councillor McLaughlin.
Only to thank councillor Sanderson for the work he did in putting this motion together.
Councillor Sanderson, right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're very united on what's got to happen with this committee. I presume that councillors will be elected to the committee at our next meeting after we've had the other applications, rather than now. But my main motivation is to get this committee up and going, not to lose any time because it's such a vital issue. So I'm pleased we've reached this point.
Thank you. I now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that unanimously. And I echo councillor McLaughlin's comments. Thank you for a very thorough and complete proposition there, councillor Sanderson. We now move to the second item. We have a speaker, or we will read out a presentation by Reverend Armstrong, who is going to help us with that.
Mr. Mayor, trustee assistant.
Right, okay.
Dear Hunters Hill councillors, I hope to speak at your meeting tonight, but unfortunately pastoral needs in my parish prevent this from happening. I am therefore writing to express my support for the Sustainability Action Plan tabled at your meeting this evening. I'm pleased to see that it has been developed since the declaration of a climate emergency and a note in the year that has now passed the significant need to act. I'm extremely pleased to see that council will meet some significant targets in the next 7 years. I hope that the committee established as a part of this would have the opportunity to expand further upon the report, continually looking for new ways to be innovative and sustainable. There is certainly significant further scope in which council could act and work with the community and local business to bring about positive change. I would have liked to see further detail in the report around specific projects and activities, and I hope that the report does not include requiring developments to ensure that sustainable building practices are in place for the new buildings and major refurbishments. The opportunity when such activities occur to improve sustainable practices, particularly around power and water usage, would have a major benefit to the entire community. I also hope that initiatives such as those being trialled by major energy providers around local community batteries might be included somewhere, especially in terms of partnerships across neighbourhoods with council and energy providers. I note that these may be included but not visible in terms of detail at this stage. as expressed. If they are not, I would hope that the committee would have expanded the plan and include these and much more. Thank you for your work that has begun, and I once again wish to express the desire of our parish to partner with the council in any way that it means to ensure that we move towards a more sustainable community.
Thank you. Councillor Crassoy.
I'd like to put the motion if there's no.
Is there a seconder to Councillor Crassoy? Councillor Miles. You wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Crassoy?
Briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would actually just like to congratulate the council, the general manager, the council officers who have put this plan together. We had an opportunity to look at it late last year, and we've been chomping at the bit to see it released to the community. And we also acknowledge that so much of the work that's in there is already being just churned out in spades, and I just really want to congratulate the council staff for really embracing sustainability and an essential triple bottom line that we need to maintain. I know that the formation of this committee is only going to benefit this living document in its evolution and how it will assist not only the council operationally, but councillors as we make decisions about our sustainable future. I'm looking forward to a time when the word sustainable option isn't also tapped next to cost, because so far a few things come up about sustainability and it often ends the sentence with, but that's going to add a cost. And I'm looking forward to a time when we're all educated enough and we understand sustainability enough to know that actually in the long run sustainability is going to save us and it's going to save our great grandchildren. And the sooner we get on to managing it more efficiently in our triple bottom line, the better. So congratulations to all the staff who put this together and to the general manager.
Councillor Crassoy, can I ask in relation to item 4 in that motion, does that need to be adjusted to accommodate our previous decision in 3.1, just to reflect the formation of an advisory body?
Item 4? Oh, sorry, I'm going back.
The council invite those working members.
Yeah.
So that just might need a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah. Though I think that 2 further working group meetings, I definitely would. The 2 further meetings needs to be in there. So would you like me to reword that?
I think it needs to, now that we've voted on 3.1, to reflect.
3.1 has 2 further meetings in it as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as a, rather than a working group, as an advisory.
As a committee, yeah. As long as that's in there, that as soon as that committee forms, there'll be probably a meeting practically straight away and another meeting, another 2 meetings at least would be.
Okay. Is there any further debate in relation to the motion before us?
I just have a question.
Yes, Councillor
if I
Collins.
can, through Mr. Mayor, the General Manager. Just on the actions, page 39 or 10 of the plan, 2.3. Regarding solar panels for the, it's not really prescriptive about what is intended there. Evaluated transition to green power for utilities and solar for council-owned buildings. What exactly would be delivered in June 21?
Madam General Manager, can you assist?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might ask the manager of place and projects to, would you like to just go to the lectern, please?
Yep. So the plan is to provide a report basically on where we can put solar panels and whether green power can be installed in any of our facilities. Not to actually install it.
So June, and that can't be brought forward a little sooner.
A report.
Just just for solar panels. I mean, it seems like pretty low hanging fruit to me.
We've been picking a lot of low hanging fruit. If you look at the difference between the December report and now, so it's just a matter of resourcing and finding the time to do it.
Well, it is an emergency.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like a long time, but okay, if it must.
It's about 3 months. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a quarter of a year ago. One other question regarding the electric vehicles, where you spoke about this, I think at the councillor workshop. My understanding that it was that they are not going to do, we bought two and that was it. I've also read in the paper that we're replacing everything with electric. Can we get?
Madam General Manager, can you
Through.
assist with the question?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to clarify, and I think we've also clarified in the Sustainability Action Plan as well, that we're talking about the 2 pure cars which have been converted to electric and 2 Ranger vehicles. And that's because the 2 Ranger vehicles were due to be changed over, but that's it now as far as our fleet go.
So the intention is not to replace every.
No, through Mr. Mayor, no, just the 2 as outlined on page 40 of the Sustainability Action Plan, the SAP.
Yep.
It says evaluate opportunities for EV vehicles, to 2 pure cars and 2 Ranger vehicles.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
And just one more further question, the General Manager. The business case prepared, can we make that available to the community, just so we can make that business case?
Through Mr. Mayor to the Director of Finance.
One thing we would have to do is consult with Origin Energy. So as part of this business case, Origin Energy provided the charging, the full charging stations. So we would need to consult with Origin Energy just in terms of if they had any issues with releasing some of the information. But certainly the high level business case statistics can be released, no problem.
Great, okay, thank you.
Right, so we've got a motion before us. You've spoken to the motion, Councillor Cresswell. Will you wish to speak?
Oh, right, yeah.
Well, no, we haven't been fully through. Any further
I think we
discussion?
just did that, didn't we? No.
Yeah, that was questions.
Questions?
Yeah, any further speakers in relation to the motion? If not, sorry, Councillor Cresswell, if you could conclude.
Thank you. Just those last couple of things that came up from those few questions. I was really pleased to read in there that last year when we were talking about this motion, we were being pressed to push for a target of 2050. And again, congratulations to the council staff and general manager who have, as a result of this climate declaration and the work that you've done over the year, had an opportunity to really look at how you're going to progress us towards a 2030 target on renewables. So congratulations on that. And I'm gunning for a little earlier, and I reckon that by the time this committee's up and formed and help supporting council as much as they can, we're going to have all sorts of opportunities. Likewise with electric vehicles, I wouldn't like to put a line under that's it, because everything is in evolution. And when we see down the track, if there are opportunities to demonstrate that electric vehicles or different kinds of electric vehicles or different ways of doing things are going to return a better bottom line for council, then it would be responsible of us to say that's it when there are more opportunities out there. So just a big congratulations again. 2030, I'm gunning for 2026. Let's do it.
Right, thank you, Councillor Cresswell. That closes debate. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's declared unanimous. We now move to the next item on the business paper, which is 4.2, review of delivery program, end of December 2020 quarter. Is there a motion in relation to the matter? Councillor Collins, you're moving. Which?
Oh, just the motion.
The recommendation. Yes, Councillor Miles is the seconder. You wish to speak to your motion?
No, not really.
Is there any debate? Councillor Miles?
Just through you to the General Manager, Mr. Mayor, on page 10 of the report, which is page 58, item 1.7.4, Council's rating structure is reviewed to include an option to apply a special rate variation for the 21-22 delivery program. We'll need to make a decision on that by November 2021. Presumably we're going to have to make a decision on that earlier, probably later in this term of council, if we're going to make an application for a SRV.
Madam General Manager,
the timing for that?
could you clarify for us?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll ask the Director of Finance to walk through the process and associated timeframe.
Coincidentally, we've actually rang IPART today, just confirming some of the timelines. the resolution itself can occur following the council election, and we've had to ask additional questions regarding caretaker mode. Some of the specific questions we asked were regarding community survey. We do need to get on fairly quickly with the actual community survey. So we've walked through some scenarios with you previously regarding asset management expenses that we'll need in the future. So certainly the community survey needs to be, should be completed on this side prior to the local government elections. But we will be meeting with IPART within the next month to further clarify timelines.
Thank you. Any further debate? If not, right of reply. Put the motion, all those in favour? Against, declare it unanimous. We now move to the next item on the business paper, which is 4.3, quarterly budget review as at the 31st of December 2020. Councillor Collins, you wish to move?
Yeah.
Which?
Sorry,
recommendation. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy. Is there any debate? Yes, Councillor Collins.
Briefly, I just want to just draw attention to the operating performance ratio. First of all, can we actually have those ratios when we next get the report so we can see how they're tracking rather than just commentary on whether we've actually made them?
That's
Yes, Madam General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Director.
within the attachment, the ratios.
Oh, you've got
should be
them back there?
Yeah,
Yes,
and within the commentary itself, there is certain references to the charts that are in the back.
So what page is the other ratios on?
Page 123, Councillor Collins.
123.
Through to
Yes, absolutely. Okay,
125.
my mistake, you're right. I just want to on this commentary for the operating performance value ratio, I just want to draw attention perhaps to the commentary there. However, as Council met and exceeded this ratio last financial year, primarily due to an increase in other revenues and rates income. However, Council is not projected to meet the OLG benchmark this financial year. This is primarily due to increased depreciation costs. Look, the Council hasn't met that ratio for a number of years, and the only reason it was achieved in 2020 was because of the $1 million bus shelter contract. Now, the reason why I want to draw attention to that is because it is important that we have, in this report that this council struggles to meet operating ratio, and it has for a long time. It didn't meet in 2018, didn't meet in 2019, didn't meet in 2020, except for the one-off bus shelter contract, which is once every 17 years. I think if we're going to have commentary around that, we probably need to be a little bit more upfront about the budget situation, which is very tight and we're struggling with. So yeah, that's all I really have to say to that. So yeah.
Okay, any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare that unanimous. Item 4.4, status of council resolutions as of February 2021. Councillor Crassoy, Councillor McLaughlin as a seconder. Is there any debate? If not, I'll put the motion. You don't wish to speak? Okay.
Sorry, I thought there was a speaker for this.
Is there?
Yes.
4.4.
No,
4.6 is the next speaker.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
That's okay.
My eyesight is very good.
Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Crassoy? No. Any further debate? Right of reply? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. We now move to the next item on the business paper, which is item 4.5, Council Depot Leasing Strategy. There's a mover, Councillor Miles, Councillor.
No,
Is there a seconder to Councillor Miles? Councillor Collins, And you're moving the recommendation, are you? Councillor, we wish to speak to.
First, I might just ask a couple of questions through you, if I could, Mr. Mayor. For the General Manager. Noting the actions currently be undertaking to lease the former depot and essentially accepting broad lease terms. Are we going out, obviously going out to state real estate agencies and sort of credible sources to get proposals from them? It's a little restrictive. I'm not particularly a fan of putting in types of potential use, because I think that might restrict us a little in terms of what depot could be.
Question, please.
Sorry. Have we reached out to anyone yet? Is it like, are we looking at Colliers and JLL and those types of firms you'd imagine, not locals, you'd be going through the state?
Madam General Manager, can you assist, please?
Through Mr. Mayor, so as the report outlines, we'll be looking at going through commercial real estate agents that deal in similar properties. With the planning information, we sought independent planning advice as to what is permissible given its current, existing use rights, as well as being mindful of its location and adjoining neighbours. So I understand your point about some of the restrictions, but that is based on independent planning advice. I think the important thing is this is a short-term lease, short-term being a maximum of 3 years, and this is to enable council time to consider the long-term future of the depot site, and it's also to bring in, intended to bring in additional revenues to help offset our deficit, which we're projecting in particularly in 21-22.
Yes, Councillor Miles.
I do, just in the interests of, I guess, those adjoining residents, I don't think that anyone would be particularly enthusiastic about having a freight or passenger transport depot next to their house. In full acknowledgement, of course, that they did have a depot, presumably when they bought the place. But I didn't want to be too prescriptive, and I don't think that should probably find its way into any expressions of interest that we're putting out there. I do notice that things like the annual increases of 2% are a little low. I'd like to see what comes up out of the OI process, but I don't think we should be restricting ourselves to things like that. I hope that we can get someone in there in the interim. It shouldn't sit empty whilst we deliberate over the long-term future of the depot, but at the same time, I think that there's probably the opportunity to go to market with a fresh set of eyes and not necessarily use the depot for what it has been used for traditionally.
Are there any further speakers? Councillor McLaughlin.
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the
Yes,
General Manager. I'm wondering if we've had any sort of first level discussions with any of the neighbours that we might be proposing to do this.
Through
Yes, Madam General.
through you, Mr. Mayor. No, we haven't. We're looking at keeping the use consistent with what it's been used for the last 20, 30 years as a depot. And as the report highlights, we're mindful of the opportunities and looking at the impact on neighbours. So the first step is really to go to market, see if there's any interest, and if there is interest, what might that interest look like within the existing planning controls, and also mindful of our existing use rights and the fact it has been an operational depot for, Mayor would probably know better than me, but at least 20 years.
Oh, more than that, yeah. That answer your question. Councillor Craswell? Councillor McLaughlin?
Yeah, well, I would just reiterate that I think it's very important that we have those discussions and at least flag that we are looking at some of these options. And I agree with Councillor Miles. I absolutely think freight and passenger leasing arrangements should not be considered as part of that process.
I'd probably add into that panel beaters in workshops.
Indeed,
um,
indeed.
That's mentioned here in the report. I think that is not, anyway. Councillor Crasso, am I?
Are you speaking to the motion or asking some
I was
questions?
going to speak against the motion.
No, okay, I'll just ask a couple of questions.
Yes,
if that's all
please.
right. Thank you. It's just exciting that we're doing such good stuff, partnering with Lane Cove, saving so much money and looking to activate this space until we decide what we're actually doing with it. In the interim of this expression of interest process, I'm wondering, I'm sure you already have, and you can take it on notice if you like, whether council have considered how we could activate the space. A couple of questions. One is there a contamination issue on the site? Because I know there were fuel tanks there. The other question is, I guess if there isn't, can we activate with perhaps providing free mulch from our chipping for people to come and take away, or a community compost garden, or an actual panel beating workshop for local kids to go along and learn about changing tyres and fixing cars, or a partnership with a local institution, with a TAFE perhaps, to use the space for a learning opportunity for young people in the area. These are just things that I'm chucking up while because the expression of interest process could take a while and it comes available in March. So I'm just chucking it up there.
Madam General Manager, is
Through you.
somebody you'd like to answer?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll partly answer and partly come back. In part, the answer around the mulch and community planting, we've recently created a small nursery space down at the back of Henley that is in use by the Bush Care, and that is certainly something we could look at down there in terms of adding some further value to that space. Mindful with the depot going through an EOI process, that there'll be people that will want to walk through that, but can certainly take that on board and come back to you about possible interim arrangements, and if that's possible. But certainly with workshops with young people, we have other spaces and also great partnerships with the high school. So we can certainly look at that, whether that's suitable for this site or whether there might be other sites locally. So we can look at that.
Councillor Sanderson, you wish to speak? For or against?
Against, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yes, look, I share the concerns of all other councillors, but my view would be that we really need to talk to community before they just see this occur. And it'll be, we do have a very observant community, and I'm very pleased that we do. I would really prefer that we have some sort of consultation process ahead of any of these moves. So I would like to propose a couple of amendments to the motion, if I could.
Yes.
They have been provided electronically. If the taker would like to bring those up.
Would you like to read them out while they're coming up on the screen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would leave number 1 as it is. Number 2, I would replace with that council consult with the community about interim uses of the former depot premises, noting any limitations imposed by the site's current SPT zoning. And then 3, I'll alter or renumber and alter to say 3, that a further report be submitted to council following consultation, suggesting uses for the site that are compatible with surrounding development.
Is there a seconder to the amendment? I'll second that as for debate. Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sanderson, just regarding that amendment. In point 2, you say that council consult with the community. What form is that consultation? What do you envisage that
Councillor Sanderson.
form that consultation would take?
I haven't specified there, Mr. Mayor, but we seem to have some fairly creative means of consultation. But I would suggest that all of the people in the area, I guess between about Ferdinand Street and perhaps 80 Street back to North Parade would be consulted, and also the school and people across the road from council chambers. So in that area along Alexandra Street.
Councillor Miles.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sanderson, what would the consultation, what would be in the consultation? I don't quite understand what. If we're putting up a premises for lease and you're saying we're going to consult and then we can't find a tenant as they want, hanging gardens or something. What exactly? Can you clarify exactly what we're consulting on? Because I don't know how that should be done.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I realise the circumstance is extremely difficult, but I think a lot of members of the community in this particular area feel a little bit disengaged from council. And I think it's important that we explain the constraints, as I'm suggesting, the constraints that are imposed in particular by the S2 zoning, and just see what comes back. There might be the odd bright idea. I mean, it's amazing some of the ideas that come out of this astounding community.
The reason why I seconded the amendment for discussion was that if a resident was putting a DA forward or considering change or changing the land use of the location, then it would be appropriate to seek consultation with neighbours. So to me, we have to be a good neighbour. We have to consult with our neighbours if we're going to go down this path. Councillor Miles?
We're speaking for and against, or
We are.
I'd like to speak against the amendment. I hear what you say about DAs, but we're not lodging a DA. If a tenant was to come in and lodge a DA, I'm with you 100%. This is a commercial decision that council has to make, and we've heard in the previous item about how serious our financial situation is. Now, I'm not prepared to let the depot, which we have moved to Lane Cove, sit empty for months on months while we deliberate on whether or not it can be used this way or that way. Now, when the expressions of interest come in, we will get hopefully a broad range of interested tenants. Could be a cafe, could be, a panel being to tape, it could be anything. But if we're not changing the land use, and they're not submitting a DA, then no, that I have no problem communicating that we're going to lease the depot to the adjoining community, but that doesn't need to be done in isolation of this. We need to make some hard commercial decisions at council if we are going to buck the trends that we are on. The trajectory is down. And if we don't start making some financially sensible decisions, like leasing the depot, then we are heading for a very difficult scenario. So all for having a dialogue with the residents, but in the knowledge that a DA is not being lodged, and that if a tenant that requires the lodgement of a DA comes along, that they have to consult broadly through the normal channels anyway. No, I can't support the amendment to the motion.
Thank you. Is there any further debate on the amendment? Yes, Councillor.
I'll speak briefly against. Look, looking at some of these uses, I wouldn't really support anything that's going to add to traffic out front of the school. I think it's bad enough as it is. But without looking at things like what's suggested here, it's a very unique piece of land. We need to cast the net very wide, see what comes in, and then obviously have those conversations. If we had, 3 offers to lease it, we absolutely should consult with neighbours and make sure we are good neighbours, but we actually don't have anything to consult on at this point. So I'm very reluctant to support anything that will add to the traffic woes that are were experienced at Woolwich. But let's just put it out there, see what happens, and yeah.
Okay, is there any further debate on the amendment? Right of reply, councillor Sanderson.
Not required, Mr Mayor.
Put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare it lost. Councillor Sanderson and councillor Williams voted for the amendment. The remainder voted against. So we now move back to the original motion. Where are we in that debate? Any further debate?
A mover and a seconder, haven't we?
Yes, we do. Is there any further debate? Right of reply.
Only to say, Mr Mayor, I hope that we do get a broad spectrum of potential uses, and once that happens, I'm very happy to consult. I think that the draft infrastructure plan that we have out there has made it clear that we have to plan for the long-term use of the depot, but this is something that is critical to make sure that we are managing our budgetary situation in a sage and clear-headed way.
Thank you. That now completes debate. I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried with councillor Sanderson and councillor Williams voting against. We now move to item, yes, councillor. Sorry.
4.6. Well, I was about to.
Yeah,
move
item
it, but I think
4.6.
there's a speaker.
Yeah.
to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, we do. So it's it's Dr. Alistair Sharp. Is he joining us, or are we reading it?
We're reading.
Reading it. Okay. Could you please read it?
In almost all respects, I support the bike plan before you this evening. I was a member of the bike plan working group and most recently attended the final meeting of this group coordinated by Mr. Badarani on the 26th of February. On the previous day, I forwarded to all members of the working group some concerns I had with the updated plan, issue B, dated 24th of November 2020. Some of my suggestions at the meeting, Mr. Badarani explained, were minor and would be dealt with in the near future without needing to be included in the plan. The others, I assured, would be conveyed to the consultants for attention. My major concerns were, and still are, one, in spite of stating the aim to encourage cycling across all user groups, including school children, there's no mention of consulting any schools on this matter. There is simply the unsupported statement that primary schools have not been identified as key destinations in this version of the bike plan. My personal observation is that students cycle to all primary schools in Hunters Hill, but to only some of the secondary schools. Certainly none cycle to St. Joseph's College. Yet all cyclists, primary school students, stand out as the most vulnerable, and it is not acceptable simply to ignore their needs. Two, one of the routes recognised in the plan is the current Hunters Hill bike route, which becomes the loop route. For no stated reason, this route has been altered from the current more gradual ascent from beneath Victory Bridge to Ryde Row, becoming a more direct climb up the steepest part of Martin Street. This should be corrected. 3, I also suggested a minor change to route HH2 to use quiet Paul Street to link to Mary Street with Augustine Street in place of the steeper and congested western part of Mark Street. I've had no response to these concerns and assumed the plan would have been updated to cater for our suggestions, but the plan is unchanged from last year. I ask you tonight to defer approval of the report subject to these changes being incorporated. Alternately, we could adopt the plan subject to these changes being made. Otherwise, what's the point of a final meeting of working group?
Thank you. Councillor Cressoy, do you wish to move a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move the motion, but I would like to ask a question based on that
Yes.
letter through you to the General Manager. General Manager, unless there was some specific reason why those elements weren't included in the plan, is there any reason why if we adopt the plan tonight, they couldn't be incorporated? Is it also potentially a living document, unlike the last one, which has been rusting away since 2004?
Madam General Manager, could you
Through-
please help?
Yes, Always. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll answer part of the question, then I'll ask the director to address the points that Dr. Sharp's raised. You're correct, it's a living plan, and I think in the briefing that councillors had the other week, the consultants who prepared the plan made that point. This is the first step, and it's a realistic step and more achievable perhaps than the earlier plan, and it will continue to evolve. I might ask the director now to respond to some of the points that Dr. Sharp has raised.
Thank you. I guess first of all, Dr. Sharp's comments that the primary school shouldn't be ignored. Absolutely. I mean, they're another user of the cycleways, and I don't think that was at all the intent of the document. The report doesn't identify them as a key destination based on the fact that they considered there to be a lot less numbers. So there's only the top ages of the primary schools who possibly were riding bikes, and the primary schools populations are a lot smaller. So they weren't the primary destination, whereas they considered a high school, shopping centres, etc., to have a greater population. So that was why they were considered not a destination. Having said that, there's a number of the 3 primary schools, and forgive me if I get any numbers or names of streets wrong, I'm still learning them. But there's 3 primary schools in the area. Each of the schools is on one of the proposed bike routes. So Villa Maria is on the Loop, Hunters Hill is on Route 1, and Baronia is on Route 2. It is possible that the wording in that section 3.1.2, the key destinations, can be updated to reflect that primary schools are on the proposed routes, so that it's clear that they are part of this whole bike plan. And it's also possible for that if schools have identified that riding to school is a major program for them, that they can contact council to see what assistance is out there. And in addition to that, there's also the School Principals Forum and the School Safety Committee, where they've got other avenues to go to as well. So that addresses his first point regarding the primary school.
Do you wish to deal with the others?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you. So the second point was around the loop route being altered. And so going on a steeper, what he proposed was a steeper route. Now, the consultants did do some investigation into that. And they had a look at the Martin Street. Is 230 metres long with a 19 metre elevation, so a grading of 1 in 12. They also had a look at the alternate route that Dr. Sharp had proposed, which was Juba Fig Tree Road, etc. And that has an average of 1 in 12 as well, with some steeper sections, some shallower sections. So it's a little bit of either way. I mean, you can go a longer way and have a shallower incline, or you can go over a little shorter or more direct route and have a little bit steeper incline. But on average, it works out about the same. The reason that was proposed for that route was because the new route utilises the lights to cross at Ryde Road and then uses quieter roads to access up to Augustine, whereas the old route turns right onto Ryde Road with no lights to assist them to get across, and then uses Ryde Road, which is a bit busier, to connect to Augustine. So that was the thinking behind that proposal. In relation to the third point, which was using either Paul or Mark Street to get to through Mary Street, both Paul Street and Mark Street are viable options. They both can link. Mark Street provides a straight crossing of Mary Street, whereas Paul Street requires a right turn into Mary Street and a left back into Mark. Mark Street has an incline, whereas Paul is slightly less. So that's possible that we could adopt it to go with the proposed option from Dr. Sharp as well.
Okay. So do we have a motion in regard? Yes, Councillor Cresswell.
I'd like to move the motion.
Councillor McLaughlin, second. Wish to speak to your motion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm so excited. Thank you to the General Manager and the staff and the consultants who've prepared this living document. I'm looking forward to having a bike plan that can evolve and reshape more nimbly than our existing one. I think that this bike plan will speak to a whole bunch of other policies and notions and plans that are already in works. Our moving around strategies, reviewing our villages and school zones and active transport options around the study of our parking strategy. Current users, I think, is really critical. And so I applaud the working group who did make some of the meetings for supporting it, because the people on that working group, they don't care about making the changes for their own needs. They care about making the changes because they want to see more people on bikes too. So I really appreciate that they've made the effort to support council in the designing of this document, and that they now feel welcome to continue to its evolution. I think the reason you see less numbers going to the primary schools is because their parents and the children themselves don't necessarily feel safe going there. So I think that a well signposted, well promoted and supported bike plan for our suburb will tick our active transport and movement goals, and will hopefully get more people moving and get less cars in those overcrowded drop-off zones at all our schools and cramming off the peninsula and around the roundabout at Boronia Park. Because if we have more people riding and walking, then you have less cars revving and polluting. And that's the other thing about, of course, safe ways to cycle, is that you have safer ways to walk. And so I think that's a really integral thing to note when you're looking at a bike plan, is that people get to enjoy walking these places as well. And for anyone who hasn't done the Hunters Hill loop, it is a beautiful loop and it's well worth the walk or the ride one day. I don't know whether council would, whether I could get a seconder to consider adding a fourth point, or whether indeed it would need it. So I'll put it as a question to the General Manager briefly, that council promote and signpost our existing bike route, and as each route is developed, that we promote them to the community, our schools.
So you're moving that as an amendment or as a further addition to your original
To be
motion?
moved as an amendment, then I'd like to add that as a fourth.
Well, Councillor McLaughlin, do
Okay.
you agree with that? Okay, that becomes the motion.
That's me.
Okay, any further debate? Councillor McLaughlin.
Just to thank Dr. Sharp for his input into the bike plan. He is one of the most enthusiastic users of our bike system here in Hunters Hill and elsewhere, and he's been involved extensively in informing bike plans throughout Sydney. So I do thank him for his input. But I do note that this is a living document, so some of the points that Dr. Sharp puts in can be incorporated at a later date if they come up. And I do note also that in the formation of the plan, I think safety has been a priority, particularly safety among children biking as well. So maybe that's why some of the points that Dr. Sharp has raised have gone in a different direction. So I'm satisfied on that count that the bike plan is the one that we should go forward with for now, but do note that there's an opportunity to change things if situation changes as well.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? If not, right of reply.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very excited.
Good. I'd like to now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that unanimous. So we now move to item 4.7, and we have a speaker who's going to join us via Zoom.
I'd like to declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in this matter. Yes, I did.
Did you do it at the start?
No, I didn't.
Was missed at the start. Okay. We'll accept that. Yes, the General Manager would like to make a statement, please.
Sorry, through Mr. Mayor. When this the leasing item came to the last council meeting, we gave an undertaking to also distribute the lease document with the report. And due to my leave the other week, that was omitted from the business paper or being circulated separately to councillors. So I apologise for that. If councils of the mind, they could defer until you have the full lease document before you, or we can circulate it after this evening's meeting.
Okay, well, we have a speaker this evening, so before we proceed, we'll hear from Mr. David Armstrong, and he's joining us via Zoom, or was it reading out?
He was supposed to be joining us by Zoom, but he's not.
available?
joined us.
Do we have a written statement? No.
We have a short written statement that I can read.
Yes, if you just. please.
Thank you, council, for support of the community-based programs such as preschool. Inquire as to when the formal document will be issued.
Okay, and he's not available by Zoom.
No, he
Right,
hasn't joined us.
okay. Is there a motion in regard? Yes, councillor.
I'd like to defer it to the next meeting.
Okay, councillor Collins is.
I'll second it.
And councillor Sanderson is the seconder. Councillor McLaughlin?
Just a question regarding that. Is there a time limit on this matter?
No, we can't.
Madam General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so in line with council's resolution in December, both
Oh,
preschools
that's right. I
have been given
recall
12
that.
months.
12
yes.
months.
I gave them 12 months. Thank you.
Okay, is there any debate? Councillor Collins?
No.
Councillor, no, okay, if there's no debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. We now move to the next item, which is fees and charges, the yarn, for item 4.8. Councillor Miles has moved it, councillor Crassoy has seconded the recommendation. Is there any debate? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. I assume, councillor Collins?
Yeah, that was a bit slow, sorry.
That's all right. We now move to 4.9, which is community grants 2020 and 2021. Yes, councillor Collins?
I'll move an amended version if I can. Okay, just strike out number 3.
Number 3, which is Boronia Park.
No, sorry.
Oh, number 3. I'm sorry. That the successful applicants are invited to receive the council. Okay,
Yeah, I think they should just be sent there. But anyway, that's
proposed with 3 deleted. And there's a seconder to that, councillor Miles. Councillor McLaughlin, you wish to ask a question?
Yeah, in order to, well, you'll speak to your motion.
yeah. I've got a couple
Sorry,
of questions.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay, councillor Collins, do you wish to speak to your motion?
first. I just want to ask a question if I can. The Hunters Hill High School seems to have dropped off this report. They made an application, but they are not in the successful or unsuccessful. So what happened?
Madam General Manager, can you assist, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I might ask the manager Leasing projects to come to the lectern.
Yeah, sorry, that project, the sub pods have been funded through our Better Waste Reduction Levy program, and I'm not sure why it's missed from this report. I apologise, but it definitely their project's funded through another source.
One other question. Did it turn out that there was meant to be a councillor? What happened with the policy? So
I was consulted as mayor.
right, okay. All right. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. I'll
Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I will. No, actually, look, I think it's fine. I think now I'm probably a little uncomfortable with probably they've made applications and we had these grants. I would like to see it done differently next year. I think we ended up with the right result. Although, yeah, some people have missed out. I think in the past we generally tried to spread it around a little more evenly. But look, that's fine for this year. That's fine. But I think I'd like to see the next term go back to the old way. But yeah, it's a good outcome now, and congratulations to all the successful applicants.
Is there any further discussion, councillor McLaughlin?
Just so that I can support or not support point 3 that you've removed. Sorry, question for you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Collins. What is your problem with that particular?
Yeah, okay. No, it's a fair question. Look, in the past, this has always been, it's a very modest sum of money, and I think it was a lot less when we started. I think it started about 800. It's always been a very a way, our community groups probably don't have as much financial support as some other bigger councils. It is a modest contribution on our part, and that's just reflective of the fact that we're a small council. It's never been, it's modest. I just don't think that this should turn into novelty checks and a bit of a circus around it. It's always been quite, it's just been a quiet little bit of a leg up. It hasn't been widely publicised, but of course, I just think having an event and asking them to come and collect their checks is probably just a little bit I think it's a bit it's not how it's been done.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, good. You've spoke to the motion. Is there any further debate for or against? Not. No need for a right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. We now move to 4.10, which is the plans of management to be referred to the Crown's Lands for endorsement. So we don't have a speaker. Yes, Councillor McLaughlin.
Councillor.
Oh, Councillor Miles.
I was
Yes.
just seconding the motion.
Okay, moved by Councillor Miles, seconded by Councillor McLaughlin. You wish to speak to your motion, which is the recommendation? Yes.
Very briefly, obviously there's the generic reserves plans of management, but I think the more significant obviously is this Big Tree Park plan of management, and look forward to that going to public consultation, and of course Glasgow Reserve. There's a lot of good initiatives that I'm keen to get community feedback on post this process, obviously, and some improvements that I think that particular reserve is in dire need of, things like basketball courts and various other access to the water. But not happy for this to go through. Victory Park obviously forms potentially part of the infrastructure strategy for council as well as the depot. But more broadly, these plans of management speak to how we're committed to maintaining the green space in the park, and what we're looking to do to open that park up and make it a much more acceptable community space. It's always suffered a little from having access issues into the park from Glasgow Road. So I'm looking forward to some of those potentially being rectified as part of the plan of management that hopefully will be adopted tonight.
Is there further debate? Councillor McLaughlin.
Only just to add to what Councillor Miles has said, in that once these come back from the department, we will be putting them back out on public exhibition. So there will be plenty of opportunity for more input if that's required.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could just suggest a very small amendment that just to make clear, because I haven't been, I guess, happy with the process we've gone through in some of these plans of management, that in point 3, you put a comma up. This is available electronically if you want to bring it up. But at point 3, comma, councillors be consulted about amendments responding to public consultation before, then back to the original wording. A further report B would become is provided to council. I just wanted to feel that, sorry, I will not speak to my amendment. I'll ask.
Is there a seconder to the amendment?
If it insists, I'm happy to include that in the motion.
Councillor McLaughlin, are you happy to incorporate that?
I assume that just means that we'll have a briefing beforehand. That seems logical.
Is that correct, Councillor Sanderson? Is that the intent of your amendment?
Mr. Mayor, I hope it would be a bit more than a briefing. In the past, I've suggested that the council took meeting committee of the whole to thrash these things out in detail. That way we can deliver a quality plan of management. It's very important that we have that consultation, so I would hope that it will be more than a mere briefing.
I'm happy for the staff to recommendations on that, but I'm happy to admit to keep that in the motion.
Do you accept that, Councillor McLaughlin? And are you comfortable with that just being incorporated, Councillor Sanderson? Yep.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, so that now is incorporated into the motion of Councillor Miles and Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Miles and Councillor McLaughlin. Is there any further debate in relation to this matter? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to speak in favour of the motion as it now stands, and I thank Councillor Miles and Councillor McLaughlin for accepting the suggested amendment. This is a process that I think has been difficult for councillors across New South Wales. I know that Councillor Crasso and I attended a forum that Local Government New South Wales held in December 2019, and Huntersville is but one of the councils that's had problems getting through this process. I think we've really got to be mindful of the problems that councils, particularly regional councils, that have about the same resources as us, but have far more parks, Crown land to manage. The process has also been made more difficult through COVID. There was talk that it should have been extended for 12 months, which never occurred. I think state government could have been more cooperative in terms of taking those suggestions up. I think at the end of the day, those changes would have provided a better quality of plan of management. And as I read the ones that we have on before us at the moment, there is a lot of tidying up work to be done. And I really relish the opportunity to have that input to make sure that we have first class plans of management that really have genuine input from our community, because our community is one that is so well informed. And as I've said in articles I've written in recent times, the best thing about being small is that we have time to listen.
Is there any further debate for or against? If not, right of reply, Councillor Miles. No. I now put the motion as changed. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. That now brings us to item, over 1,000 pages. Item 11, which we have a presentation to be read. Is that? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Dear Mayor and fellow attendees, my statement is regarding the resurfacing of Yerdon Avenue Road. This has been an ongoing issue for over 14 years and nothing has been commenced. The surface of the road has worsened over time and numerous emails have been sent, but nothing has been actioned. In the last 5 years, we've had 2 major developments on residential housing and the condition of the road is appalling. There is also a large sandstone step on the road, which is obstructing our cars when trying to reverse out of our driveways. And it is also a pedestrian hazard. I've attached a number of photos for your perusal and I have tried to schedule a time to meet with council representatives regarding this ongoing request that required attention, as it is the only road in the suburb that hasn't been repaired and has a number of loose rocks, stone debris, and even uneven surfaces and potholes. We were told the road was going to be resurfaced in around 2019, and we're still waiting. If you could consider this as an urgent and have it resurfaced within the financial year, thank you. Janelle Calandra.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Having heard the motion.
Councillor Collins is the seconder. Is there any debate? Yes, Councillor Sanderson. Before you do that, you're speaking for or against?
I wish to put an amendment to the motion.
Okay, do you wish to speak to your motion first?
I'll wait to hear what the amendment is.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move or add a point 3, that residents affected by the proposal be consulted to ensure good access to entrance gates, garages is maintained, and that the dish gutter on the north side of Yerdon Avenue is designed to maintain good vehicle access.
Is there a seconder to the amendment? For purpose of
Could I
discussion,
just
I'll
ask a
second it.
question through you,
Yes,
Mr Mayor, through to the Director of Service Delivery. All that would be done as a part of the process anyway, would it not?
Madam General Manager,
Through you, Mr Mayor, and then I'll defer to the Director. As the councillors are aware, we've had a number of discussions around the expectation of how we consult with the community around roads and footpaths. We've taken that on board, so that's become part of our normal process. Director, would you like to add to that?
I guess, yeah, the only thing I can say is that absolutely we'll be looking at all those issues, making sure we consult with the appropriate residents and looking at the design to make sure that they've got the same facility they have now or better.
does that answer your question?
Let's
Yes.
hope it's better.
Yeah, that's.
So we have an amendment before us.
We have a second.
I'm happy to second it for the purpose of debate. So is the mover,
If it doesn't affect the motion at all, which I can't see it doing, then I'm happy to put it into the motion. It's just, I'm not quite sure it's necessary, but if you want to put it in, you can put it in.
okay, so that's now incorporated within the motion. Is there, yes, councillor McLaughlin?
Was there a seconder for this motion?
Yes, councillor
Oh, right,
Collins.
okay. Sorry, I just had a question. I don't understand what a ditch gutter is on the northern side of Burton Avenue, and I'm just wondering if that affects others, or I'm not sure who that's
do have
through you,
a,
Mr Mayor, to
yes,
the General
we
Manager.
do have a history of dish gutters causing issues. So through you, to you, Madam General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director, the technical expert. Yeah.
I guess the simple form is it's what it says. It is just a dish drain. So it's not a curb and gutter. It's just a dish that will have the water run through it, just to divert it from the roadway.
We do have previous issues of them being a bit too steep and cars getting caught on them as we go through. So I'm sure that won't happen.
We will investigate that, and if there is an issue, we'll make sure we look at it first.
Okay.
Good.
So if it's in the motion, then that's certainly something that you will be looking at. Okay, it's fine to leave it in there then, of course.
No further debate? Yes, councillor Sanderson, you wish to speak for or against?
I'll speak for Mr.
Yes, sir.
Yes, look, I'll speak for the motion. This is a street that is in extremely poor condition, as is the laneway immediately above, which I used to use frequently walking. There is some history of the street, and we've had a submission tonight, and I think it's very important that we look at all of the angles. In terms of the dish gutter in that street, it's important that that be aligned to pick up driveways and other things. There's also a lot of sandstone wall that has to be considered. So I think it's important that those things are considered in the motion, but I absolutely support the use or utilisation of the funds we have available for this repair.
Yes, and they are grant funds, so it's important we make best use of them. Is there any further debate? If not, right of reply, councillor Miles.
I don't think it's necessary.
No, okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. That now brings us to item 4.12, 4.12. We don't have any further speakers. So is there a motion in regard to the summary of council investments as of 28th of February 2021? Is there a mover? Councillor Crassoy, is there a seconder? Councillor Sanderson. Moved by councillor Crassoy, seconded by councillor Sanderson. Is there any debate? If not,
sorry. Yeah,
yes,
I thought-
well, okay, councillor Crassoy, you wish to speak to your motion?
No, Mr Mayor, I just, you needed a move for it, and
Yep,
so I was
thank
happy to
you.
move it.
Okay, councillor Collins, you wish to speak for or against?
Just a question to start with, through you, Mr Mayor. We've got 10 million Macquarie call. Doesn't that breach our per institution limit of 5 million?
Madam General Manager, can you assist, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director of Finance.
That's an on-call account, so I will defer back to the investment policy whether there's a different stipulation about term deposits or call, but that's certainly the recommendation that was provided by our investment advisors. So I can take that question on notice if you'd like me to investigate further.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, yes,
I
councillor.
will speak briefly
Collins?
to it.
Yes.
Look, I know it's too late now to form an investment committee, but we do need to do this. This keeps happening. We don't have processes in place. And as we can see, to be quite frank, councillors here are not actually picking this up. It seems I'm the only one that's sort of noticing these things. So I don't understand why these councillors, when I put in a motion to form an investment committee, they vote it down because they say it's not necessary, and yet are still unable to do their job and actually review these reports and understand what's going on. So I would implore councillors to read this report, and I would encourage them to be supportive of an investment committee in the future if I do decide to bring it back, which I think I'm of a mind to do. So that's all I'll say about that.
Just for future reference, councillor Collins, I'd refer you to clause 15.11 of the Code of Meeting Practice.
Yes.
We're not in a position to insult or make personal reflections or impute improper motives.
And what
on
was
our
the-
policy.
what did
I didn't, I'm not calling, I'm just reminding council of that provision. So is there further discussion? Councillor Prassel, do you wish to? No, okay. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. That now brings us to a report on legal matters in February 2021, which is item number 4.13. Councillor Collins?
Yes, I will move that, but I'd also like to.
Is there a second? Is there changing it, or you just?
Yeah, it's a slightly amended version, and that is the report received and noted that we change that we alter the format of the report to include matters that have been finalised in that period. So just word that however you like.
Has that been captured? However you like. Okay. Maybe if you could read it out so that we can, Madam General Manager, so that we can be clear.
Through Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, we've captured this. So point 2, that council alter the format to include matters that have been finalised in the period. Could I suggest we define the period? And
Yeah, so basically since the last report, I'd actually like to, probably as point 3, I'd like a report of all the matters closed this financial year. But going forward, I think it's important. So what happens is we have a matter.
Let's try and get the motion and then we'll debate it.
Well, I'm trying to sort of construct the best way to do it, but they drop off and we don't see what happens.
could I suggest a
Yes.
suggestion? If point 2 read that that council alter the format to include matters that have been finalised in the financial year, the current financial year.
Yeah,
would
that's probably quite good. Keep that on there as a table. Yeah. And I might add just another
Point 3.
point. Yeah, it might be 3. Just probably with the matters finalised, what was, maybe briefly what was the outcome, cost, outcome sort, just so we can track whether wins or losses. I'm not worried about the wording, as long as you understand.
But we need to have the wording.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So
Whatever makes it.
So we'll just take a moment to make sure we've got a form of words that council can agree to.
Yeah, could I?
Yes, Madam
suggest-
General Manager.
So point 3, that matters finalised provide details of the outcome and associated costs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Miles has seconded the motion. Can we just have it read, please, so that we are clear on exactly what's in it? Madam General Manager.
Yes, if I could.
All right.
So point 2, that council alter the format of the report to include matters that have been finalised in the current financial year, it should read. In point 3, that matters finalised provide details of the outcome and associated costs.
Yeah, I think that will do it.
Okay, and Councillor Miles has seconded that. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor?
Just briefly. I'm mindful that there is a gap between right at the end of the case when it would be on the report, and then it gets finalised, settled, or we lose it, and then it just disappears from the report. So we don't actually see any outcomes of these legal matters. And I think a way for us to understand, when we spend money on legal cases, whether we're getting a good outcome, and whether, I just think broadly we need to understand. We do spend a lot of money on legal fees, and we just need to understand whether that's been appropriately managed, I think. So, I think that's all.
Is there any further discussion, debate? Yes, Councillor Miles.
Yeah, so I guess we have the legal panel now, which is good, and I know Steve and the staff are doing a good job trying to get those case numbers down. But particularly with point 3, I wouldn't even mind having, I don't know, it might be too bulky, but if they can't be attached to the report, perhaps being sent to councillors, the rulings of each of those cases. They're usually not that long. Some are gargantuan, but usually
at least a link
could be fine. But if they're manageable, to be added as annexures to the paper. But I mean, Ben, Councillor Collins is right, where we've had the same format for the legal reports for the 9 years I've been on council, and things sort of drop off and drop onto the format. And I'm sure it makes more sense to the staff than it does to councillors, but inevitably we sort of do lose a little bit of track of where some of those cases are going and how much money is being spent. So it would be good to know what the outcome is, how much money has been spent on that case, and then if we do have rulings, adverse or positive, whether we can just get them sent to us. So I think that would just give councillors a better understanding of where we're at. I know the staff are doing a good job trying to get those case numbers down and deal with things either in mediation or before they get there, but it would be good to just understand where we're at.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Councillor Collins, you're happy?
No, thank you. That's
good. I close the debate. Now I put the motion as read out. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. I might just add, maybe the print could be black rather than the sepia that we've got at the moment, so some of them. Item 4.14, which is development applications determined under delegated authority, February 2021. Is there a motion in regard to the matter to receive and note? Councillor Crassoy, is there a seconder? Councillor Sanderson. Any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. We now move on to the next item, which is item 4.15. Development applications determined by the Development Control Unit in February 2021. Again, the recommendations receive and note. Is there a motion to that effect? Councillor Miles. Councillor McLaughlin has seconded. So moved by Councillor Miles, seconded by Councillor McLaughlin to accept the recommendation. Any debate? Put the motion, all those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. That brings us on to 4.16, which is the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee held on the 17th of February 2021. Is there a motion to receive and note? Councillor Collins. Councillor Miles has seconded that. Any debate? Do you want to speak to it, Councillor Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so I was at that meeting as the councillor member. I'm glad to see that this meeting, this committee will be continuing until the end of term. One of the matters referred to it by this council was the issue of the investments being not in consistent with the policy. And I just thought I'd update council to say that a report's going to be brought back to the audit committee just to go over those processes and make sure everything's in order. Other than that, we as a committee met in secret, but without staff, but in camera. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school when I say that the feedback was very good. And I think when you sort of acknowledge the technological changes around this place and the processes and the systems that have been implemented, I'm acutely aware of how complex that is because that's the space I work in. And I think to get such a good feedback on council systems and processes around that is a very positive thing. So I commend the general manager and staff on that. Yes, look forward to continuing the great work of this audit committee.
Any further debate? Motion, all those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. That now brings us to the Conservation Advisory Panel meeting held on the 17th of February 2021. Councillor Sanderson, you wish to receive and note that report? You do. Is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin, you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I won't speak to this one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion? Put the motion, all those in favour, against? Councillor Sanderson?
Sorry.
Yes, that's unanimous. That now brings us to item 4.18, minutes of the Bushland Management Advisory Committee held on the 11th of November 2020. Councillor Sanderson, you wish to move?
I wish to move the
recommendation. Receive and note. Is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will on this one.
Good, thank you.
Look, this was one of the most amazing committee meetings I've ever attended. It was a culmination of a lot of the work that this committee has done. The work in question was actually conducted by postgraduate students at Macquarie University. And we had the benefit of seeing that at the briefing we attended early in February. That proposal got as far as recommending possible routes for biodiversity corridors to link our eastern and western parks. You know, this is an incredibly important matter, and I think we all need to take careful note of the content of that report. And it's something that we really must consider in all of our future planning, to do everything that we possibly can to ensure that those biodiversity links are continued. And just to add something to one of the earlier motions, I mean, one of the things that I get the most satisfaction out of having been a councillor for this time, that it was my notice of motion that brought the Bushland Management Advisory Committee together. Just as tonight it was my motion that has brought a sister committee of council in our Sustainability Advisory Committee. And I'm sure that both of the two committees will work hand in hand and deliver on a very important aspect of council's work.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. I agree. It shows great strength the way the council partners with external bodies to deliver some pretty important stuff. So, any further debate? Yes, councillor Collins.
Just a question, just about the committees in general, and I was looking through, I think when we update the standard committee policy, I think we need to, there's quite a few in there that probably needs to be, that's okay.
Are you asking a question?
No,
Who's
I just
speaking?
maybe making a point, and I think it's understood, that's fine. I've only just noticed it, so.
We'll take that on board. Any further debate? If not, right of reply. Put the motion, all those in favour? Yes, declare it carried unanimously. That now brings us to item 7.1, which is questions with notice. Councillor Sanderson, you asked that question.
Would you like me to speak on a couple of the points, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you may. There's been an answer given.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those, I think some of us asked very similar questions around what's occurring with access to, in particular, UNSW boating sheds and also the eastern end of the playing fields at Huntley's Cove. The question was in relation to a proposal was sent out to residents there where there was only one option, and that was to have no standing on one side of the street. That doesn't exist at any other point, even though there are quite a number of other similar width streets. So it doesn't seem to be absolutely necessary, and I think that's what the residents take issue with. I suggest, I'm pleased, however, that I understand that further consultation will be going on and that there will be other options on the table. The other one I did wonder about is one of the questions that I raised, which I don't think had been raised elsewhere, was the possibility of putting no buses. Well, it's actually the answer is actually answered incorrectly. My question was in relation to no buses signs specifically. I realised there were problems with no trucks because if a truck got to make a delivery to a point, it doesn't have to take notice of that particular sign. So I wonder whether the director could better explain, that has been explained in the answers, through you, Mr. Mayor, of course. I wonder whether there could be an answer as to whether, or what the process we would need to go through to have no buses sign implemented at the western entry of Waroota Place.
Through you.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. We'll take that on notice and provide a written response to Councillor Sanderson, or the councillors, sorry.
Yes, councillor.
Just on the same issue, Mr. Mayor, I hope that in our consultations, and I noticed that the agenda came out for the traffic committee and Waroota Place is not on there. I hope that an option is to do nothing, because the strong feedback I've had from several residents is if there are changes made down there, that they would not be supportive of any changes. They would prefer the status quo. So I hope that that's something that we can take into consideration as well, because that's been a very strong feedback to me.
Yes, one of the suggestions that has been put by residents is that we engage with the stakeholders to see if we can get better management of their representatives, and that meeting is being organised. So that may shed some light on opportunities to alleviate some of the problems. Yes, councillor Craswell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just on it as well, I know I have requested a bit of information about the DA approval of the Huntley's Cove development in the first place, because I don't know about anyone else, but the rowers have been reaching out and wanting to do everything they can to engage with the residents and the council. that they can all continue to operate down there as they have for a very long time. And so it would just be helpful to have that documentation available so that some of the things that people are saying, putting notes on windows and writing to other residents with potentially not factual information can be presented more honestly and openly in a stakeholder debate. And that just comes back to having that original documentation available to us.
Yes, I think that's important. Well, we've looked into that, have we, General Manager, as to whether or not that's available?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of this process, we'll be undertaking further consultation and looking at all options, and all options include the base case, which is no change. And as Councillor Crasso has raised, facts are very important. And so we're looking at confirming land ownership, right of way access, and what is public and what is private land. And we'll come back to the council with that information.
That's correct. Because they always have really been trying to engage. And
Yes, well, we're going to have a stakeholder meeting and see how we can negotiate that. Councillor Sanderson, has that answered your question?
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, that now moves us to the last item on the agenda, which is to move in. We're going to deal with a confidential matter in committee. So we need a motion. Councillor Miles, Councillor McLaughlin is the seconder. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We now move into committee of the whole, which requires us to leave our live feed, and we'll